On Tuesday afternoon, history was made as Nikola Jokic was officially named the most valuable player in the NBA.
2019 Kia NBA Most Valuable Player goes to Giannis Antetokounmpo.
And the MVP of the Western Conference Finals is Luka Doncic.
For a long time, the NBA looked down on European players like they were lower tier of talent or something. However, over the last 10 years, the NBA MVP award went to European players 5 times, twice to Giannis and 3 times to Jokic. So there's a legit question. How did European players rise so high in the modern NBA? This piece of data may not sound like a big of a deal to you, but wait until you hear the fact that from 1955 all the way to 2004, every NBA's MVP was from the US. For 49 years, the Americans dominated the strongest basketball league, and now things have changed drastically. Hello basketball fans, and welcome to Hoop Vision. Today, we're telling the story of how European players entered the NBA from the side door and created a pathway to becoming an irreplaceable part of the league. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Takes only a second, costs nothing, and will give you access to more basketball stories. Once upon a time, getting a roster spot on an NBA team was very difficult for players outside of the US. If you think it's hard today, think about the times where there was no internet, no highlight videos, and not as many opportunities for players to get noticed. Scouting was way more expensive as you had to pay individuals to travel across the world and watch games in real time, hoping they'd run into some decent talent. Yes, there were stats and coaching reports, but those could easily be manufactured in order to sell the player to be better than he really is. So, in other words, you had to have a really great potential to be noticed. If we had to pick a decade when the Europeans entered the NBA, it would have to be the 80s. Drazen Dalipagic was the first player from Balkans to step foot into the basketball league in the world, spending 2 seasons with the Boston Celtics from 1978 to 1980. A couple of years later, Uwe Blab from Germany, Hanno Matola from Finland, Georgi Glaushkov from Bulgaria, and Fernando Martin from Spain made it into the league, having minor roles in teams that weren't real title contenders. The biggest European talents of that decade came in 1989, both being massive stars in their former leagues, but that didn't mean anything in the NBA. If you're a fan of basketball history, you probably know the names of Vlade Divac and Drazen Petrovic. They both came into the league as young, promising players. Petrovic was drafted to the Blazers while Vlade went to the Lakers. They were almost like brothers to each other, and their friendship was one of the biggest ones among professional athletes at the time. However, all of that would come to an end when war broke out in former Republic Yugoslavia in 1991, breaking them apart. Unfortunately, Divac never got the chance to sit down with his friend and make amends since Drazen tragically died in a car accident in the summer of 1993. Anyways, they were the ones to open the door of the NBA league for European players, including those from the Balkans region, because no other players before them were able to leave such a mark in any of the NBA franchises. Divac went on to become one of the most respected players in Lakers and Kings history, while Petrovic was considered one of the best shooters in the league, and his death has always inspired the what-if questions. Their individual accomplishments had a much bigger impact than they could ever imagine. Soon, a lot of front offices started thinking of adding European talents as role players. The best example of that being a good idea were the Chicago Bulls, who played Tony Kukoc at power forward and used his strengths perfectly. The man was a 3 times NBA champion, which not even many USA players can add to their resumes. Another big name from the 90s era was Arvydas Sabonis, the father of today's Sacramento star Domantas Sabonis. The man was a 7'3" beast from Lithuania and is liked in the NBA community until this day. The best testament of Sabonis' toughness was the comment his doctor made after the knee injury he suffered before the draft. Arvydas could qualify for a handicapped parking spot based on his x-rays, the doc said to the Blazers front office, but they took him anyways and never regretted it. Can you imagine something similar happening in today's NBA? Not a chance. The 90s were just a different era. People were built differently, and a different narrative was created around the players. Franchises weren't trying to protect them as they do today, but instead sharpened them through adversity and struggle. The 90s 90s were full of crazy stories, but the craziest signing probably came in 1993. George Murian was known as the Romanian Giant, but what many people didn't know was his basketball journey was completely accidental. Standing at 7'7" tall, he was almost a surreal sight. When coaches of Romanian basketball club Cluj went to the countryside, they spotted a man's head sticking above the haystack. At first, they couldn't believe how tall George was, and the rest was history. After the 90s came to an end, it was obvious the shift had been made and European players were considered as something completely normal in the NBA. Even today, there are skeptics that favor USA players over the other ones. But at the beginning of the new millennium, everyone knew the NBA would never go back to the same level of exclusivity that once existed. Players like Dirk Nowitzki and Tony Parker emerged and played a huge role in shaping the Western Conference. Dirk even went on to win a championship in his later years, and helped his fellow European Peja Stojakovic win a ring as well. Them sweeping the Lakers in those 2011 playoffs is still one of the biggest champion demolitions to this day. However, the biggest European takeover in the NBA happened in the following years. Over the course of one decade, we've seen the emergence of talents like Giannis, Jokic, Luka, and Wemby. Europe went from producing respectable role players to straight-up MVPs and GOAT candidates. Imagine someone in the 90s talking about top 5 centers in the NBA ever and mentioning some kid from Serbia. Everyone would go wild on that guy. But now, it's like the tables have turned and more people outside of the US have been given the chance to show what they got. The expansion of the NBA has to be one of the reasons for this phenomenon, as more and more leagues are adjusting their rules and playing styles to be in the same line with the NBA's. Coaching has also witnessed massive changes in terms of how players are utilizing the fundamentals, their shooting, and recovery. Jokic and Giannis have claimed 5 MVP awards since 2019, and Luka has been taking up the top spots in the race as well. If Wemby goes through that Giannis muscle transformation, the league will be in trouble. He already averaged impressive numbers on a minutes restriction. Imagine how wild his stats are going to be if he increases his strength, remains healthy, and continues to develop in the right direction. Let's say Jokic takes at least one more MVP until the end of his career, and Luka is definitely going to have at least one MVP season in the future. Giannis could still have one left in him, so that leaves us with 3 more European MVP titles. Add Wemby's expected 2 to 3 MVPs, and you have a total domination over the league. Now, this scenario isn't guaranteed to happen, but it's just a nice way of looking at how big of a difference there is today compared to previous decades where players from Europe were happy to just make the league. Wemby will definitely learn a lot from playing with CP3, and if they add more pieces around them, they could be an actual playoffs team, provided Paul remains healthy and plays through the entire season. Also, if Coach Pop continues to work with him, there's no reason to believe he couldn't surpass Tim Duncan. Given his humbleness, Duncan will probably work with Wemby in the future and help his former coach win more championships. Of course, we're not taking away anything from the USA's basketball pride. They still have one of the most talented player pools on the planet, and their college basketball alone will make sure they never run out of fresh prospects. Even with its stars aging, USA is still one of the world's most powerful basketball national teams, and next Olympics are definitely going to be fireworks with Curry, LeBron, and the rest of the crew leading the charge. That's it for today, Hoop fans. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Let us know in the comments who your favorite European player is and how many MVPs do you think Wemby can win in the future. Thank you for watching and growing this channel. Make sure you don't miss out on more NBA stories by hitting that subscribe button. See you in the next one.